Hello everyone, hope you're all doing well today and thank you for joining today's webinar, Ask the Expert, How to Master Postgres Databases in the Cloud. We're just going to wait a couple of minutes before getting started to allow everyone who has signed up time to join, so please stay tuned and we will be kicking off very shortly. Hi everyone, we are ready to begin. So thank you again for joining our Ask the Expert webinar today. My name's Alice and I work in the marketing team here at EDB. And I'm just going to run through a short bit of housekeeping before handing over to Kevin Lee, who is our Sales Engineer Director in EMEA and is going to be your host for the webinar today. So the first point to make you aware of is that we are recording and we will be sharing the recording alongside the slides after the webinar. And secondly, the lines are muted. So if you have a question, please send it via the Q&A question panel and our experts will be answering these throughout the webinar. The focus of today's session is Ask the Expert. So we do encourage you to ask as many questions as you'd like, and any we don't have time to answer within the hour, we'll aim to follow up with after the webinar. There is a prize on offer too for the best questions, so don't be shy with asking any questions. And that's all from me now, so I will hand it over to Kevin.
Thank you, Alice. Hi, everyone. Welcome to this second episode of the Ask the Expert series. So today I have the pleasure of my colleague Sergio is going to do the speaker. So let me just go to the next slide. He's also part of the sales engineer in EDB and responsible for the Southern region. And he is the expert on the cloud part. And besides Sergio, we also have two experts in the panel, Michael and Vinny. They will be answering any question that you might have in the Q&A session. So let's get started with this. So we have a agenda, and it's not a lot of presentation. We're really going to go to some practical question examples. To do that, as Alice already mentioned, the best question is going to win €25 gift card. First of all, we're going to talk about some understanding about cloud deployment, how to deploy Postgres, what are the managed services available in the cloud, and also then comparison between different deployments, scenarios, use cases, and also identify some of the comparison, what are the benefits, the pros and cons. And with that, and Sergio has got really excellent demo to showcase how to deploy and use some of those deployment environments, such as in the cloud, database as a service, or Kubernetes container in the cloud. So let's move on forward with this now. So Sergio, we talk about cloud. Can you give us a high-level perspective about the landscape of cloud compared to on-prem?
Yes, thank you, Kevin. Thank you for the nice introduction before. My name is Sergio Romera. I'm sales engineer for EMEA in EDB. I've been working in different companies like Oracle, like BNP Paribas, Quest, and others. So yes, I'm going to explain the landscape that we have in the presentation. For many organizations, the advantage of a cloud-based database are clear. There are often scalability, security, security and availability. There can also be cost saving our customer. And
So Sergio, sorry to interrupt you, but I think people have difficulties to listen to you. Can you maybe, yeah, closer to your microphone?
okay.
Okay,
Okay,
great,
it's
better,
okay,
much better
right?
now. Yes.
Okay, perfect. Sorry. So I was telling that for many organizations, the advantage of the cloud-based databases are clear. So they offer scalability, security, and availability. They can also be cost saving over custom and on-premises database solutions. However, not all cloud databases are created equal. Terms like IaaS, PaaS, DBaaS, and SaaS have traditionally been used to describe various levels of cloud computing. But how do they apply to cloud databases, and what to make database as a services offering? So we'll take a look at the main difference between these categories of cloud databases, on-premises, IaaS, DBaaS. So along with the pros and cons of each to help you decide which is most appropriate for your organization. Now, next slide, please, Kevin. So managing and monitoring PostgreSQL in cloud can be a challenge. Okay, we can observe different benefits and some challenges. For example, the benefits are low cost if we compare probably with an on-premise architecture or with an on-premise implementation. So the flexibility, we are flexible depending of the type of cloud or determine of type of infrastructure that we will put in place in the cloud. We can be more flexible or more elastic in the cloud. The challenge, we have different challenge that we have observed with our customers: bandwidth, control, local regional regulation and policies. Bandwidth, not all countries have a cloud region. If you go to in Africa, the main providers, cloud providers, have not any data center in Africa. This evolving little by little, but this can be a challenge. The other challenge can be the regulation. Whilst there are not direct legislation, some regulators, most notably in the financial service sector, have in recent years published guidance on the use of cloud technologies. This guidance focuses on how the technology can be used in compliance with existing regulatory rules. And whilst it has not set out a step-by-step process for deploying cloud technologies in compliance with regulatory requirements. So a lot of challenge, a lot of benefits to go. So let's move to the next slide,
Yeah,
Kevin.
exactly. So Sergio, we talked about this, right? There's a lot of the different options, the deployment. You can use cloud infrastructure as a service. You can also use a database as a service, which some people call it platform as a service, right? And but there's also something new coming out, cloud native, which you're going to cover with us. That we are very excited to hear more about it. But you're going to walk us through. So I think the first one you're going to talk about it is the infrastructure as a service.
Yes, infrastructure as a service. So there are a lot of things that we can do in the infrastructure as a service. This is probably the most not the most important, because all are important, but this is the more flexible environment that we can have in the cloud. Infrastructure as a service, the service is hosted by a provider. The main one are Amazon, Microsoft, Google. There are other actors in the market that can provide you an infrastructure as a service. The main topics here are that you can provide your virtual machine, your virtual platforms, and the operating system. Okay, you can choose the compute, the storage, network resources, and the service is hosted by a provider. Okay, you rent their hardware, and the hardware is not in your own. The hardware allows to the service to the cloud provider They provide a room, power, air, connectivity, batteries, all related with the power and the infrastructure of the machines. Of course, they provide support for hardware too. Okay, and you provide and support all software from OS up, including databases. You know, if you want to have a database in a IaaS, you have to install your database, you have to configure your database, you have to maintain your database, all related with administration, backups, is your responsibility. In fact, you have full responsibility for managing and backups and scaling your databases. Okay. Another important point is that you can have unlimited scalability in your environment. Why? Because you can add more virtual machines to your infrastructure, and you can deploy your databases, scaling out your database through the virtual machines. Okay, this is a very important thing because in most of the managed services that the main clouds provide, you are very limited in the number of databases that you can provide for Postgres. Okay, that you can instantiate for Postgres. Yeah. Next slide, please, Kevin. So in DBaaS, database as a service, this is something that is not new, of course, because all the cloud providers can bring you databases as a services. One of the most important thing is that the database is hosted by the cloud provider, and everything or a lot of things are managed by the cloud provider. Okay. Upgrade patches, backups, security, a lot of things are bring by the provider, and just you have to guarantee the content of the database. You know, all the objects that you are going to install into the database is your responsibility. You manage all the tables, you manage all the objects like primary keys, foreign keys, triggers, stored procedures, functions, etc. is your responsibility. Okay, so the dedicated resources with latest equipment are the responsibility of the cloud. Okay, so you are not responsible of the hardware, you are not responsible of the operating system. Is your cloud vendor that is responsible of all these kinds of all of this kind of stuff. Okay, so yes, this is a very good choice, a very good choice. We have created in EDB a new service in database as a service that is called Big Animal, and I will show you at the end of the presentation a quick demo how to provision clusters in Postgres clusters
Yeah.
in the cloud.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think one of the interesting part as well, we discussed also early on, is that you don't need to bring your license with your, it comes with the license, what they call license, right? It's like OPEX model. So whenever you need database licenses, it come with a subscription, so you don't have to worry about it. Everything is in one package together. I think that's also one of the pros, a plus point. You don't have to worry about separating infrastructure, compute, network, and all that. And then you have to buy the database license. So everything is all in one, right?
Of course, everything is embedded in the same subscription, so you have just to pay the subscription and everything is there. Okay,
Yeah.
so you can migrate databases from Postgres to Postgres, or you can migrate databases from other relational database types to Postgres. For example, in EDB, we have a solution that is compatible with Oracle databases, so it is very easy to migrate from Oracle to Postgres. Okay, if you are interested, you can ask a demo, and with pleasure we will show you how you can migrate these Oracle databases to Postgres without many efforts.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I think the next one, this one is quite new, right? A lot of people maybe not know about this cloud native. Can you spend a little bit more time talk about cloud native?
Of course. What is the cloud native? In fact, we are using Kubernetes technology to provision Postgres clusters. Okay, so you can create a container, you can create a node, you can create a pod in Kubernetes, and you can provision a cluster in an easy way. Okay, I will show you in the demonstration after how can we provision this Postgres inside of a Kubernetes infrastructure. Okay, so you can it's a very good thing because with using microservices you can provision a lot of databases and you can do queries to these databases in a quick way, having independent databases for each of each of microservice. So the independence with a standard based is most of the time a little bit complex to implement, but the flexibility that you can have and the dependence that you can have is very high because depending of the number of your microservices that you have created in your application, you will be able to split in different databases your data, which is a very good thing. So you can automate with APIs, you can automate with Kubernetes commands. So it's very once you manage and once you know the technology, it's very easy to provision clusters and manage all the data that are in these clusters. Okay.
Yeah.
So the downtime is another point that is important. Because when you create a cluster inside of a Kubernetes environment, the downtime can be managed with the configuration and can be managed depending of the configuration that you are putting in place. Why not to create a disaster recovery like is shown in the next slide? You can Kevin, please, can you go to the next slide? We will, if you want, go back in the previous slide. So here in this slide, you can see that we have a cluster, a Kubernetes cluster with 3 nodes, one primary, 2 standby Postgres databases, and you have different nodes for the applications. Okay, so if you want to have a disaster recovery solution, it's very easy because you can create a backup somewhere. In my example, I have created in S3 a backup that is created almost in real time, or you can do some connections from cluster 2 to cluster 1 to replicate almost in real time all the data that you have in the cluster 2. So it's very easy to implement this kind of solutions. Why not to be multi-cloud? You know, have your cluster 1 in the cloud 1, Amazon, for example, and the disaster recovery solution in a cluster 2 in a cloud 2 like Azure or Google Cloud or your private cloud. Okay, this is something that is is possible today.
So what you're showing now is actually multi-cloud, but also you can mix and match between public cloud and private cloud. For example, you mentioned about data center A and B. It doesn't have to be all in the public cloud, right?
Yeah. You can have a local cloud or private cloud or a public cloud. Okay, you can mix everything. So, which is very good because if you want to have a copy of your data or your databases into the cloud or on premises, you can do that. Okay, today.
Yeah.
So, and the facility to create the cluster, the database clusters, is unbelievable.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah. So maybe there's one question. One of the audience asked, Mohsin, is an EDB customer. He said, what is the way to, is there a migration of EDB database to the cloud? Maybe you will talk about that, maybe just quickly provide your information about the migration of on-prem to the cloud with EDB database.
Yeah, so it is very easy today to migrate from on-prem to the cloud. Why? Because we have tools to do that.
Okay.
Yeah, we have a tool that is called Migration Toolkit. It's a command line toolkit, a command line application that or tool that allows you to migrate data from one database to other, from on-prem to the cloud, from on-prem to on-prem, from cloud to cloud. Okay, so you have just to select your source database and your target database, and migration toolkit will do the job. Okay, we can migrate all the schemas, we can migrate just the schema and the data, migrate little by little. We can migrate everything at the same time. For example, schemas and data, just the data, so just on one table, just one procedure or store procedure, just one function. So everything is possible with this tool.
Great, thank you. So
You're
we
welcome.
move on to the next one. Oh, we have a poll.
Yeah.
So we're gonna get the poll, some question from the audience. So which the cloud the currently used? You can do a multiple choice. You can choose multiple a cloud there. So please select the appropriate one just to see, what are the cloud you currently using. So we get about a couple of seconds. Yep. Can you show the result, Alice? Oh, great. So there's a lot of private cloud, and there's a lot of Amazon and Microsoft, and some couple of them are Google as well. That's good. I think a lot of the customers also, they do private, public, and a different cloud, right? So you mentioned about the multi-cloud. I think this is a very realistic situation. Because people are using different types of cloud. So how do they find the right one? So I mean, there are so many different choices, right, Sergio? So we discuss it. I think you can share with us maybe some of the best practices, some of the ideas. Which one is the right one to go for?
Yeah, it's the pool is very good to know, because there are a lot of people that are using Microsoft Cloud and AWS, but also infrastructure. All the databases, or most of the customers are using on-premises databases. Okay, if you want to move to the cloud, contact us, please, because again, we have tools to move from on-premise databases to the cloud databases. In all the configurations that we have, if you want to move to the IaaS, we have a solution for that. The same for the database as a service, or the same for cloud native. Okay, so most of the IaaS and DBaaS environments are multi-tenant, which means we are sharing the vendor's compute and storage architecture with other customers. In addition, depending on the architecture and vendor choosing, the system will vary in degrees of scalability, elasticity, automated administrative services, and self-services. In EDB, we are providing solutions for the three types of infrastructure. Okay,
Yeah.
so do you want to go to the IaaS? Okay, no problem. We can deploy almost automatically, because we have created a lot of scripts to provision your infrastructure, to do a lift and shift from on-premise to the cloud. We have everything which is ready to be applied in your infrastructure. We have a GitHub that contains a lot of things to deploy automatically, scripts with Ansible, Terraform, and so on. So we are ready to do that. Okay, if you want to migrate to DBaaS, again, yes, we are ready we have created scripts to migrate from on-prem to DBaaS. Same thing for the cloud native. We are ready. Okay, in the cloud, you don't have to build your server support environment that provides air conditioning, light, multiple power providers, etc. Everything is ready in the cloud. So in terms of infrastructure, everything is there. Just you have to put in place your configuration, well define what is the option that best fit to your needs. If you don't have any DBA in your company, just maybe it's not a good solution. Maybe you have to choose DBaaS solutions. If you have cloud native expertise, if you are developing on a microservice architecture, probably cloud native is the best choice that best fit to your configuration. right?
Yeah.
If you have all the expertise to configure machines, to plug all the machines, and so on, you have to rest probably in on-premise configuration. But why not to explore the IaaS part, because everything can be ready in some minutes on the cloud, because everything is configured very easy, and you have all the infrastructure ready to be used.
Yeah.
Okay.
Great. So Sergio, there's an interesting question. You have a different varieties deploying your databases onto the cloud. And one of the questions Rogers asked, why downtime is a count when there is a database in running in as a clustering?
Yeah. So when we have a cluster of databases, there are two concepts that are very important: RTO and RPO. Okay, RTO is recovery point objective, and RPO is RTO is recovery time objective, and RPO is recovery point objective. Okay, more near these two indicators are to zero, the best will be your database architecture. Okay, so in EDB we are proposing high availability infrastructure with an objective for availability of 4 nines or 5 nines. Okay, 4 or 5 nines, again, this is an objective of availability of your system. If you want to have just 10 minutes of downtime per year in your environment, we have a solution that is proposed by EDB to have a high availability database with almost zero downtime of your database. Okay, you can provide upgrades, you can provide switchover or failover with zero near downtime. Okay, if you want to have a more classical architecture in the IaaS, we are providing some architectures in high availability with one primary and one or several standbys that provide you and that guarantee that you can switch or fail over your databases with a minimal downtime of your environment. Okay.
So I suppose it's very much based on the use cases, when how much downtime you can afford, whether you really need that automated failover and stuff like that. So I think what you just described, Sergio, is very much based on the use cases.
Yeah, it's
okay.
True. It's true.
Cool. Okay, so let's move to the demo. So you got some really cool demo to show us, right? So let me stop sharing, Sergio, and then you can share your demo.
Show the next slide, please.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah, no problem at all. So just to show what we are doing, to show what we will do in the demo, during the demo. Okay.
Okay, let me just go back to this.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, perfect. I have prepared two demos. Okay. The first demo is in Big Animal. Big Animal, as you know, is the database as a service, an EDB solution that allows you to create Postgres databases very easy in a cluster, in a cluster mode or in a single mode. Okay. Today, this architecture is only available in Microsoft Azure, but very soon, very soon, before the end of the year, we will be able to have this kind of clustering in Amazon and in Google Cloud. Amazon is in the roadmap, and we will have the solution implemented before July. Okay. At the end of the first at the end of the second quarter. Sorry. Okay. So let me share my screen.
Okay, let me stop sharing.
Yeah. Okay, let me take the hand, share screen.
Yep, we can see your screen now.
Okay, perfect. So I'm connected to Big Animal. Okay. And this is our portal. Just to give you more information about Big Animal, if you go to the enterprisedb.com website, you can see here that we have a solution that is called Big Animal, and you have all the information of this solution here. Okay, you can even create a free trial database that will be available for 40 days, I think so. So, okay, let's talk about the big animal. Here, I have created in the France central region a cluster. Okay, this is a simple cluster that I've called Sergio test. So let me show you how can we create a cluster. Okay, we can create a cluster in different ways, or through the portal, or using the CLI, the command line interface, or the APIs. Okay, I'm going to do a mix during the demo. Okay, how to create a cluster. So here it's very easy. Here we have to do we have to write the cluster name, test big animal, for example, big animal. We have to choose a password. Okay, let me just choose a password. This is okay. Okay, I put a password, written a password. We have two different data types, okay? EPAS, which is Enterprise DB PostgreSQL Advanced Server with the Oracle compatibility, or a Postgres database, okay? We can choose the version. This is very important, choose the correct version according to your application. Just for your information, as we are an editor, a Postgres editor, we are able to provide and we are able to give you the latest version, the latest patches of Postgres that are included in your Postgres version. Okay, so again, at this moment, the only provider is Microsoft Azure, because this database, this cluster, will be created in your account. Okay, this is a very important point. It's not in the EDB, in the EDB cloud. Is in your cloud, in Microsoft Azure account subscription. Okay, so for example, I want to create here a database in the Europe France Central, and I can select the instance type, for example, memory optimized or compute optimized. Depending of this category, we will have different options in the instance series. This is a classical, okay, for example, if I choose compute optimized, I will have a standard FSV2. If I choose memory optimized, I will have different types. Same thing for the size, okay? I can select the number of CPUs and RAM that I can have for my cluster, and the storage, I can select the storage. For example, this one for to have 4 gigabytes with a number of IOPS and provision megabytes per second. Okay, classical network connectivity type, or private or public. I can select the IPs that are authorized to my public access into the cloud. If I click on next database configuration, I can select the parameters of my databases. Okay, for example, application name and all the parameters that can be very useful for your cluster. For example, memory or whatever. Okay, and at the end, I can create a high availability or a single architecture. Just for your information, if I go to the documentation, here you have everything that can be set up in your environment. For example, here supported architecture, high availability. What does it mean? It means that you will have a primary database with 2 standbys. Okay, this one and this one. If you choose a non-high availability and not enable high availability instance or cluster, you will have just one primary database. Okay, so and the next step is to do a create cluster. We click on create cluster, and the cluster will be created in some minutes. I'm not going to create the cluster because I want to create a cluster with the API. Okay, let me show you how can I create my cluster with the API. So I have two different components, the CLI and the API. Okay, in the CLI, I can check what are all the parameters that has been configured in my cloud provider. For example, here I'm showing all the providers that I have in my account. If I want to check the regions, the same, I can show you the regions. Or if I want if I want to show you what are the clusters that I have in my account, the thing is to do a command like this one, big animal, and show what are the clusters that are in my account. Okay, so I have four clusters that I can manage on my subscription. For example, this one. Okay. How to connect to the cluster? It's very easy to be able to connect. I have just to select the cluster and copy and paste this quick connect connection, and that's all. I can connect to the cluster in an easy way. Okay, I can create a table, create a table test 10 ID integer, for example, and I can insert data into test 10 values data. Okay, no problem for that. So it's very easy to get a connection if you have access, of course, to the cluster, and it's very easy to operate into the cluster. So the next way, let me show you how can I create a cluster. Just I have prepared here a script, this one, a cluster Sergio, okay, that contains all the parameters of my cluster. Okay, so this is a test, this is the password, the cluster name, Sergio webinar. So let me just show you how can I create this cluster. It's very easy. Just the only thing to do is to pass this parameter file to a big animal command line, and the cluster will be created automatically with all these parameters. Okay, Postgres
So in that way, you can really go to, with the user interface or scripting or API to manage, create
yeah,
your database as a service, right?
yeah, right. We can go through the portal,
Yep.
or we can go to Sergio webinar, for example. Here, if I filter by Sergio, the
Oh yeah,
Sergio webinar
you already started it,
is
creating the
starting.
clustering. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
that's great. Maybe we'll
so
come back to that after you show the other demos,
yeah,
Sergio.
okay, no
Yeah.
problem. So let me show you how the API works. Okay, let me show you. Okay. Just I have prepared some scripts here. So
So you're
first,
not sharing the screen for your scripts.
no, because I have a lot of scripts.
Okay.
So let me just
Okay. Now I see
okay.
something on the screen now.
Yeah,
Yes.
okay. So
Okay.
let me just take an authentication endpoint. Okay, I'm taking my authentication endpoint. Just I'm doing some copy and paste because as you know, the API can be a little bit. We have to write some commands. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
so the first thing is to get a token. Okay, I'm taking a token. So I confirm that I have my token, okay?
Yep.
And once I have a token, I write some commands, okay, to be able to execute my commands. So let me just take my token. This can be scripted, and we have another script that take the token in a variable. Okay, I have my token in here in my variable, and after that I can write some commands like Postgres types. Okay, I can get a JSON file with all let me use GQ. GQ is a JSON parser that can show you in a good format the data. You know, here I'm using the API to get my Postgres types. Okay, so I'm getting the Postgres type. The two Postgres types of my cluster
Mm-hmm.
are EPAS
Yep.
and
Yep.
Postgres. Okay, for example, another script is this one to get Postgres versions. Okay,
Right.
let me just execute my command. Postgres version are version 11, 12, 13, and 14. Okay, so these are my Postgres version, and so on. So you can do everything with the APIs. Again, you have everything that is documented, very well documented here in the documentation for Big Animal, using Big Animal's APIs or using Big
Yep.
Animal Clay. Okay.
So Sergio, Paolo asked a excellent question about if you started with the single nodes,
Yeah,
can you upgrade that to a cluster?
of course, of course. You can click on the in here,
Yep.
and you can edit the cluster,
Yep.
and all the parameters that you have defined for your cluster can be modified. Okay, here
Great.
in availability, my first cluster was just with one node.
Yep.
So the thing is to click on high availability, and we will move from one node to 3 nodes.
Okay. Okay. That's
Yeah,
great. Sounds
always in the
great.
same region in a different availability zones. Okay, because we will have the database split it in different availability zones.
That's cool. That's cool.
Yeah.
I suppose you can do it through the interface as well as the CLI and API to do that.
Yeah, of course, of
Okay,
course. So
great.
let me just go here. The cluster is creating. It will be created in 1 or 2 minutes maximum.
Yeah.
So okay, that's all for beginning.
Okay.
Let's go to, if you want,
Container with
to the
the
containers.
cloud
Yeah,
native.
cloud
Yeah.
native Postgres. So let me just move my screen to that and give some concepts about containers. Okay, in the containers, I'm using an emulator of Kubernetes, which is called Key 3D. It's a rancher emulator containers, and just let me show you some concepts about containers. I have created an alias to kubectl, okay, that can execute Kubernetes commands. So at this moment, I don't have any pod created. Just for your information, the pod will contain an instance of my cluster. At the end of my demo, I will create a cluster with 3 pods, and each pod will have one instance of my cluster. Okay, so the idea is to create a high availability cluster in Kubernetes. Okay, so let me just show you my script. Okay, that will contain my YAML script that will contain all the definition of my cluster. Okay, I'm creating a cluster that is called cluster 1, which has 3 instances in the latest version of Postgres, or almost latest version of Postgres. And yes, I'm doing all the backups in S3 in Amazon. For your information, you can store your backups in the cloud, in Azure, in Amazon, but also you can create a gateway with Min.io that is providing a service to create or to store your files in your local file systems. Okay, so this is not a problem at all. Everything is well documented in the documentation, and in my case, in my demo, I'm putting my backups in S3. I'm going to show you how it's created. So I have prepared a script that execute just mainly four commands. Okay, let me show you what are the commands that I will execute. I execute my installation, install CMP cluster, and the first command is to this one to install the CMP plugin. Okay, that is installed on my machine. The second one is to install the operator. The operator, we have different versions of the operator. I'm installing the latest one. The operator will be installed in your Kubernetes infrastructure. Once the operator has been installed, we need to validate that the operator is validated and is checked. Okay, so my operator, once the operator has been installed, I can create my cluster. And to clear my cluster, the only command that I have to execute is this one. Apply in a Kubernetes environment my YAML file. My YAML file contains all the description of my cluster. Okay, so that's all. In 50 seconds, I have created a cluster with 3 instances in high availability. It's unbelievable. Okay,
Yeah.
so I have my 3 nodes in Kubernetes. For example, if I get my pods, I have my pods here in my Kubernetes. I have different IPs here with different with different
Servers, instances.
service
Yeah. Yeah.
instances. Yeah.
Yeah.
So if I want to connect to my cluster, and just I have to connect with my Kubernetes command to the cluster 1. Okay, why not? I can create a table, create table or test. Okay, ID integer. Okay, my table is created. If I go to the second cluster, which is a standby cluster, and a standby instance here in the cluster 2, I can check that my table has been created. Okay, my table is here. Select start from test. My table is here with 0 lines. If I try to create a table here, create table test2, I can't create the table because this is in read-only mode. Okay, because this is a cluster, a Postgres cluster with a primary at 2 standbys. Okay, that has been defined in my cluster configuration YAML file. Okay, let me just to show you that I can create because this is in a read-only mode. Okay. And that's all. Several commands here to show the status of the cluster 1. This is the operator that is giving you this information. So as you know, as you can see in my YAML file from cluster 1, all the data will be back up in this address in Sergio test CMP disaster recovery backup directory. So if I go to the bucket here, if I refresh my bucket, because I'm here in Sergio test, I'm going to refresh in S3. I have the operator has created a CMP directory or folder with a disaster recovery folder, which contains the information from my cluster 1. This is automatically created, and all the walls has been copied into S3 Amazon account to be able to create another cluster if necessary, or to have a copy of my data in my account, in my Amazon account.
No, okay. Great stuff. Yeah.
If I want to create the latest test that I want to show you is a backup. Okay, just backup cluster 1. Let me just execute this backup. To execute the backup is as simple as this. I'm going to apply the backup file, backup cluster 1, YAML file. Okay, the backup has been executed, so I can describe my backup file, backup test, because this is the name of the backup that I've done to my backup. Backup started, and the backup has been completed, has finished. So I check if my backup has been copied in my Amazon instance, and here I have a base directory, okay, which contain a backup of my database, okay, which is compressed, which is here, and everything has been inserted in the S3. And this can be used to create a disaster recovery environment with all the data that has been inserted in my S3.
So it's quite easy and very much you can script it to that's great.
Yeah.
Okay, so you done with it? I just want, out of interest, you already created the cluster, right?
The cluster is completed.
Yeah. So it's a couple of minutes, and then you get it. A database with cluster environment with Big Animal.
Yeah.
Okay. Cool.
If you want to migrate from on-prem to Big Animal, just use a migration toolkit to do this task
cool.
in an automatic task.
Yeah. And anything else you want to add with the demo, or should we switch it back?
It's from my part, that's all. The cluster is working well. Everything is working perfectly here. I have my primary here and my 2 standbys in a synchronous mode, but I can switch very easy in a synchronous mode. So everything is working well. Each time that a switch of the walls will be done, the backup will be stored in the S3 bucket.
Great. Yeah. So if you stop sharing now, Sergio, we switch it back to presentation.
Yeah.
And we then go to the Q&A.
Yeah.
Let me just go back to the slide deck. Right. You can see my slide?
Not yet. It's coming. It is coming. Not yet. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Here we go.
Great. So we have a poll. So just like to understand the audience, what kind of a databases they are using most. So this is a select one. You might have more, but in this case, you can select one database only. Just to like to see the audience. What are you using at this moment? Okay. Right. So let's go and have a look at the result. Alice, can you show the result? Oh, wow. The majority, a lot of Postgres audience here. And second is Oracle. Third one is SQL Server. And then MySQL and some DB2 and some others. So it's a good mix of audience as well. So that's great. Let me just read a couple of questions while you're demoing, Sergio. There's a question also from Tilmon. He's asked, if there are any use cases not to use or not to move on-prem database to the cloud. Why and why not? What are the situation that it should be not moving from on-prem to the cloud?
Okay, you can have different how can I explain that, reasons to be on-prem. Okay, the first one is probably one of the most common reasons is the security. People are scared about the cloud because the infrastructure is not in their premises, and they don't know where the clouds are, where the data centers are. They don't know if somebody can access to their data, etc., etc., etc. I'm not working in AWS or in Microsoft or Google, but they have invested a lot of money to secure the databases and their infrastructures. Okay, so this is probably one of the most important reasons why the people are staying in on premises. The second one maybe is the performance. I know a lot of customers that are moving from on-prem to the cloud, and in some cases they are moving from cloud to on-prem because the performance are not there. We are working with some of these customers, and we are seeing that the databases on the cloud are not well configured. Okay, in most of the cases we can improve the performance in the IaaS platform, in the infrastructure, because with a little bit of tuning and with some database modifications in terms of operating system parameters and in terms of some optimizations in the code, we can improve the performance of for that. So the question today is, if I go to the cloud, I'm locked into the cloud. From understanding, the answer is no. You can improve everything that is in the cloud. You can improve it. You can fine-tune your databases, and you can parameter in a different way or you can modify your parameters in your databases and your operating system to improve the performance. So
okay,
these are probably the two most important topics for
yeah,
people that
I'm sure there are more. It depends on the use cases, and
it depends of the use
yeah,
cases, of course.
yeah, that's great. Yeah, let's summarize it, and we have some questions as well. We got lots of questions, by the way, and let's summarize it. So the journey to cloud is things to consider, right? It's about the workload and the use cases, and very much depends on what you already discussed, Sergio. And moving the cloud, not necessarily saving costs, because you might already invested the licenses, invested the hardware, invested your data center. So there are some cases maybe it's not 100% that moving to the cloud is save you the costs. So you might have to consider that. I think also you mentioned about HA and SLA requirement is also important, right? So so you have to consider your cloud that support your RPO, RTO, high availability, downtime. What is your service level agreement? And not important, in EMEA, there's a lot of regulations and data privacy, especially GDPR and all this kind of regulations. So you and your internal customer or your IT department might need to investigate what are the boundary of your data protection, what kind of things that you need. And also check with the DevOps team and your application owner, what makes sense to move to the cloud, what not. Because some of the application owner, you using a third-party apps, maybe they're not ready to go to the cloud. And also talk to your DevOps team as well. What are the things that is possible, what is not. It's not just lift and shift and then you're done, right? It's more than that. So I think these are the things that and there are more. We are just highlighting some of these things that you might need to consider. So for Q&A, thank you, panelists, while Sergio and myself talking. There are a lot of questions flowing through. So again, we are open to more questions. So if you have any question, please feel free to the Q&A. There's one that's Dixon actually asked, how do you handle situation where a Kubernetes restart the pods? Do you always have to restore database after the pods up again? Will there be more persistence opportunity to host pods in K8 and Kubernetes?
So when you start the databases in the pods, you can stop your cluster, or you can continue to work with your cluster, and you can stop your pods, and automatically the cluster, the primary server, imagine that you just stop your primary pod, okay, because you want to do some maintenance in the server that is linked to this pod. Automatically the operator will switch or will fail over to another standby database. Okay, so the all primary will be destroyed, the all standby will be promoted into a primary database, and your cluster will continue to work normally. So the switch over or the failover is done in some seconds, in less than 5 seconds, okay, depending on the power of your infrastructure. But it's everything is controlled by the operator, so you can maintain, or you can put in maintenance your pods, of course. But if this is not the case, if you kill a pod, automatically the operator will create another pod with another copy of the primary database or a standby database.
I see.
Yeah, this is the way the way of the this is the way of how the operator works.
I see.
So.
Yeah, so there's another one. Dirksen asked, I think Vinny already answered about Terraform provider. So so the big animal and the deployment, we're going to use Terraform and maybe Ansible in the future.
No, everything is done through the APIs with Terraform. I think
it's in the roadmap, right?
It's in the roadmap. Yeah. With Terraform is in the roadmap. So we'll be able to provision with Terraform. Yeah.
There's a question also from Sifat. How to convert 5, I don't know what's LAKH rows, Excel to MySQL, or you mean Postgres, right? So not 100% sure. LAKH, what is LAKH for Excel?
LAKH.
Oh, doesn't matter. So Michael already answered that.
Okay.
But what else? I think we're on the top of the hour. So wow. So it's got 1 minute left. I think it's about time to announce the winner, right? Let's get the audience. Our panelists. Yep, I got a message from the panelists. They nominated Tillman Schutter. So we will contact you, Tillman, congratulations, you win this 25 euro gift card. We will reach out to you. And again, if any audience and attendees have further questions, you can use the Ask the Expert at enterprisedb.com to ask any question that you might have. And meanwhile, we put a poll there, follow up. Would you like us to follow up with you on a call or email, or maybe later, or maybe no? So please feel free to select the options there. And if it's yes, then we will reach out to you by email, or maybe set up a call to discuss with you that you might have questions that, during the session or maybe afterward. So with that, we are on top of the hour. So Ask the Expert is a series of sessions from the experts. The next one's going to be the 6th of April. So one of our experts is going to talk about what are the critical steps in planning and managing Postgres data migration. So we're talking about today, I think a lot of people ask a question, how to move migrating on-prem to the cloud. That's one part, but what about the database? So it can also be SQL Server, it could be Oracle, it could be other databases to move, whether it's going to move it from the same platform or maybe different platform. What are the things that you need to consider? So we're going to have that session on the 6th of April. So that's the last one. Thank you very much for the audience, and thank you, Sergio. Sergio, I don't know whether you have any last final word before we close off this call.
It's okay. So thank you very much to everyone, to everybody for joining this webinar. It's a pleasure for me to talk about cloud, to talk about Postgres, databases. I'm a passion of databases, so thank you very much, everybody.
Thank you, Sergio, and thank you, Michael and Vinny. You guys been great, answering lots of questions, so I very much appreciate for your support. And again, thanks the audience also being very active, participating, asking a lot of great questions. So I wish you have a great day and hope to see you in the next session. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.